Hey, good morning, everyone. It's Tuesday, April 14th. Here are your learning targets today. Today, I'd like for you to look at Math Board. You're going to do the fractions, comparing fractions. Then, today is a Splash Math Day. We're going to be comparing fractions in Level 2 and Level 3. And today, get a chance to do a brain break from one of the specials teachers. I'll show you where that is. All right, in Math Board today, when you get here, please go to Comparing Fractions. Remember the strategies that were taught this week and last week, how to compare two fractions, and then try your best. Maybe do it once or twice, maybe 3 times. Then when you get to Splash Math, you're going into fractions. You're going to do Level 2 and Level 3. Notice I have mine done already. Went through it and I grabbed a couple examples to show. Remember the strategies trying to compare fractions. You can always use pictures if you need to draw them out. Today we're going to look at finding a landmark or a benchmark like the fraction 1/2 or 1/2 in a little more detail. And my favorite, again, you can always cross multiply. Those are 3 strategies when you're comparing fractions. All right, let's take a look at one of the examples. It's asking which fraction is greater than 1. So you can see I drew a number line here. Notice on my number line, there's the number 1, and this number line goes all the way up to the number 2. I have broken my number line up into fourths because of this denominator. So if I were to start at 0, I count 1, 2, 3, 4 equal parts to the number 1, and then again 1, 2, 3, 4 more equal parts to the number 2. So if I'm going to compare which fraction is greater than 1, I'll start with 1 itself. That can't be greater than 1 because it's exactly 1. So I'm going to plot that on here and call that letter A. Letter A is the number 1. I'm looking for where is B, 3/4. Well, 3/4 would be right here. That's 3 out of the 4 sections. And C would be 2/4. 2/4 is exactly the same and equivalent to 1/2. So that leaves 7/4 goes all the way out to here. If you count with me, that's 0, 1/4, 2/4, 3/4, 4/4, or the same as 1/2, 5/4, 6/4, and 7/4 would go there. So I could plot that right there, call that D. 7/4 is the one that is greater than 1. All right, let's look at another example. Again, which fraction is greater than 1/2? So we're looking at benchmark fractions. My benchmark is 1/2, or my landmark. And if this is 0 and this is 1, half would be right here. Which fraction is greater than half? Well, in this line, I divided every part into 8 equal parts because each denominator shows 8s. So if you count with me, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 equal parts. So let's find which one is greater than half. I'll label these again as A. 7/8 would be right here. And this one would be B. 1/8 would be right here. I'll label this as C. 4/8 is exactly 1/2. They're equivalent. Oh, let me try that again as C. And D. 2/8 would go right here. So if I'm looking for which one is greater than 1/2, well, here's 1/2, which is equivalent to 4/8. So the one greater is 7/8. So to make this choice, 7/8 is greater than 1/2. Using 1/2 again as a landmark or a benchmark fraction. All right, let's compare this one. I want to compare 4/10 plus 1/2. Is it greater than, equal to, or less than 1/2? Well, a few things you have to know here. 4/10, before I can add it to 1/2, I need to have a common denominator. These are 2 different denominators, but watch what 1/2 is equivalent to. 1/2 is equivalent to 5/10. This has a common denominator with 4/10. So I can think of it like this. 4/10 plus 5/10 is equal to 9/10. And 9/10 is less than 1 whole. Notice my number line, I broke it up into 10 equal parts. 9/10 would be right here. That is less than 1 whole. So I would choose this symbol to move in. All right, let's compare these two fractions. You can use 1/2 as a benchmark. If you can look at my number line, each of them has a halfway point. That's our benchmark or a landmark. So let's look at the first one. The first one is 2/6. I chose to make my number line into 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 equal parts. 2/6 I can plot would be right here. If I'm looking at 2/4, my second number line is broken up into 4 equal parts. 1, 2, 3, 4 equal parts. 2/4 can be plotted right there. You'll notice that 2/4 is exactly 1/2. So if we're comparing, you can use 1/2 as a benchmark. 1 is exactly 1/2. 1 is less than 1/2. So in this case, we would say that 2/6 is less than, we'd move that in, to 2/4. All right, one more example. I have 14/12. I want to compare it to 5/8. 14/12. I have exactly 12 equal parts here on this number line. If I were to plot 14/12, well, here is 12/12. 14/12 would be off the chart here. Excuse me. So 14/12 is greater than the number 1, whereas when you compare 5/8 to that, notice this number line in 8 equal parts. 1/8, 2/8, 3/8, 4/8, 5/8 is here. So 5/8 here is not even 1. 14/12 would be way past 1. So therefore 14/12 is greater than 5/8. All right, here you're looking at my Google Classroom wall, and look at your brain breaks today provided by Mrs. Zucker. Mr. McShane, Mrs. Robinson, and Mrs. Flynn have all put in some activities for you to try out. Try them out. Take a break today after your math and with Mrs. Stonick's work, and get yourself a break in with one of the specials, okay? And last, I'll leave you with the learning targets once again. Make sure you do your math board fractions you're comparing today. Splash Math, just level 2 and 3, and get a brain break from specials teachers. And don't forget to check Mrs. Stonick's Google Classroom as well, continuing reading on Indian in the Cupboard. Okay, thanks. We'll see you tomorrow morning for our Zoom meeting starting at 11:30.